Hello, Night Story listeners. Pull up a chair, dim the lights, and let the rest of the world fade away for a while. Tonight, we're going to step back in time, not just a few hundred years, but to the very beginning of the world as we know it, to a time when the heavens and the earth were still taking shape, and the first beings were born from the chaos of creation. This isn't just a story, it's a foundational myth, a tale that whispers of the origins of life and death itself. It's the legend of Izanagi and Izanami, the divine creators, and the terrifying journey into the underworld of Yomi. The ancient Japanese believed that before anything existed, there was only a vast, silent sea of chaos, and floating upon it was a bridge, a celestial archway connecting the heavens to the unformed earth below. From this void, the very first gods emerged, a pantheon of divine beings who held council to decide who would bring order to the world. Their choice fell upon two young deities, a brother and sister named Izanagi and Izanami. Their names translate to he who invites and she who invites, and their task was simple in its description but monumental in its scope: to create the land. They stood on the floating bridge of heaven, gazing down at the formless expanse. The gods had given them a sacred spear, adorned with jewels, called the Ame no Nuboko. With this spear, Izanagi, following the divine instructions, dipped the tip into the watery chaos. As he stirred the unformed sea, the water began to churn, and when he lifted the spear, drops of salt water fell from its tip. These drops were not like ordinary water, they solidified into the first island, the island of Onigoro. It was a beautiful, solitary landmass, and upon it, Izanagi and Izanami descended from the heavens. It must have been an incredible moment, to stand on the very first piece of solid earth, knowing they had created it. They decided to make this island their home, their sanctuary, and upon it, they built a magnificent palace. In the center of the palace, they erected a pillar that stretched toward the sky, the pillar of heaven. And it was around this pillar that their divine union began. They walked around it in opposite directions, Izanagi from the left and Izanami from the right. When they met on the other side, Izanami spoke first, exclaiming, "Oh, what a handsome young man." Izanagi, a bit taken aback but pleased, replied, "Oh, what a beautiful maiden." It's a very human moment, isn't it? This small, awkward exchange between two divine beings, the first words of affection ever spoken. But the other gods, watching from the heavens, were not pleased. They told Izanagi and Izanami that it was wrong for the woman to speak first. This was a grave error, a cosmic mistake, and they would have to repeat the ritual to set things right. So they tried again. They walked around the pillar, and this time, when they met, Izanagi spoke first. "Oh, what a beautiful maiden," he said. And Izanami responded with her own delight. This time, their union was blessed by the heavens, and from it, they began to give birth to the islands of Japan. One by one, the islands came into existence, a sprawling archipelago formed from their divine love and creative power. They gave birth to the lush green mountains, the winding rivers, the misty valleys, everything that makes up the stunning landscape of Japan. With each new creation, they breathed life into the world, and it flourished under their care. It's hard to imagine the sheer scale of their work, to build an entire country, an entire world, piece by piece, from their own essence. It's a level of creation that feels almost incomprehensible to us. After creating the lands, they turned their attention to the lesser gods, the kami, who would inhabit them. They birthed the kami of the sea, the wind, the mountains, and the trees. Every part of the natural world, from the tiniest stone to the mightiest storm, had its own divine spirit. It was a time of pure, boundless creation, of joy and harmony. The world was new, pristine, and filled with the gentle hum of life being born. But with every creation, there is a risk, a price to be paid. And their story, which began in such light and love, was about to take a turn into the deepest, darkest shadows imaginable. Izanami, in her final act of creation, gave birth to the fire kami, a deity of immense power and heat. The birth was an agonizing ordeal, and the fiery essence of the god burned her terribly. She was wounded beyond healing, her divine body scorched and broken. As she lay dying, in her last moments, she still gave birth to more kami, the gods of the clay and the water that are used to put out fire, a final, desperate act to bring balance to the fiery chaos that consumed her. It's a tragic end to a creator of such immense beauty, isn't it? To bring something so vibrant and beautiful into the world, only to be consumed by its power. Izanagi, devastated by the loss of his beloved sister and wife, watched as she slowly faded away. In his grief and rage, Izanagi turned on the very being who had caused her death, the fire kami. He drew his great sword and, in a furious act of revenge, he beheaded the fire kami. From the blood and body of the slain fire god, even more gods were born, deities of thunder and valleys. But these new beings did nothing to soothe his pain. The world, which had been so full of light and life, now felt empty and cold. Izanagi could not bear to live in a world without Izanami. His love for her was so immense that he decided he would do something no other deity had ever done. He would travel to the underworld to bring her back. The underworld, in Japanese mythology, is a place called Yomi no Kuni, the land of darkness. It's a realm of eternal gloom and decay, a place where the sun never shines and the dead wander aimlessly. It was a terrible, forbidden place, but Izanagi didn't care. He was driven by a single, desperate hope to reunite with his wife and restore their perfect world. He descended into the abyss, his spirit filled with a mix of determination and dread. As he journeyed deeper and deeper into Yomi, the air grew thick and heavy, the sounds of the living world faded, and he was surrounded by nothing but the silence of the dead. It must have been an experience that would break even a divine being, to willingly enter a realm so devoid of light and hope, all for the sake of love. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he found her. Izanami was there, but she was shrouded in the deepest shadows, her form barely visible. He called out to her, his voice echoing in the eternal gloom. Izanami, my love. The world is not complete without you. Come back with me. Let us return to the land of the living and continue our creation. Izanami's voice, a hollow echo, answered him from the darkness. My dear husband, you have come too late. I have already partaken of the food of this land. I am bound here forever. She explained that once a spirit eats from the food of Yomi, they can never return to the world of the living. It's a common theme in myths, isn't it? That once you cross a certain threshold, there's no going back. But she told him she would plead with the gods of the underworld, asking if they would grant her an exception. However, she made him promise one thing, a single, crucial condition: he was not to look at her. Under no circumstances was he to gaze upon her until she was ready to leave. Izanagi, filled with hope, agreed without hesitation. He waited outside her chamber, the minutes stretching into hours, the darkness pressing in on him. He waited and waited, but she never emerged. A gnawing impatience began to set in, a fear that he would lose her again, this time forever. The silence of Yomi was deafening, and his anxiety mounted with every passing moment. He couldn't help but wonder what she was doing. Was she really pleading with the gods? Or was she gone forever? The temptation to look, to just get a glimpse of her, became unbearable. And in a moment of weakness, driven by his love and his fear, he did something he had promised not to do. He broke his word. He took one of the comb-like pieces of his hair and broke it off, lighting it like a torch. The small flame flickered, casting a dim light into the chamber where Izanami was waiting. The sight that greeted him was not the beautiful, radiant goddess he remembered. It was a decaying corpse, her body covered in maggots and rotting flesh. The gods of thunder had nested within her remains, and her face was a sight of utter horror. The sight was so horrifying, so shocking, that it broke something inside him. The beautiful, vibrant being he had loved was now a monstrous, decomposing shell. The love he felt was instantly replaced with revulsion and terror. He screamed, a sound that echoed through the dark halls of Yomi, and he turned and fled. His promise was broken, and his heart was shattered. Izanami, discovering his betrayal, was filled with a mix of fury and shame. She felt exposed, a decaying horror where she had once been a divine creator. Her shame and anger consumed her, and she rose from the filth, a vengeful ghost, and sent the hags of Yomi, the Yomi Shu, 8 terrifying lightning gods, and the 8 thunder gods, to chase him down. They were grotesque, demonic creatures, and they pursued Izanagi with a relentless, terrifying speed. The chase was on, and Izanagi, in his fear, threw objects behind him to slow them down. He threw his headdress, which turned into grapes, and as the hags devoured them, he gained a few moments. Then he threw his sacred comb, which transformed into bamboo shoots, and they stopped to eat again. He was running for his life, desperate to escape the consequences of his actions. Finally, he reached the border of Yomi, the place where the living world met the underworld. It was a massive, stone-covered pass, a chasm that separated the two realms. With a burst of strength, he rolled a gigantic boulder to seal the entrance, trapping Izanami and her monstrous pursuers inside forever. The boulder was so large that it took the combined strength of 1,000 men to move it. On one side of the boulder stood Izanagi, the creator of life, now filled with despair. On the other side stood Izanami, the goddess of death and decay, filled with a bottomless rage. And from behind that boulder, her voice, now a mournful wail filled with hatred, cried out to him. Izanagi, my love, you have betrayed me. I am filled with shame and anger. If you leave me here, I swear I will take 1,000 lives from your world every single day. It was a terrible curse, a declaration of eternal vengeance. Izanagi, standing on the edge of the living world, answered her with a voice filled with sorrow and defiance. Then I will build 1,500 birthing houses every single day. I will ensure that life will always outweigh death. We are no longer husband and wife, we are enemies now. With those final, heartbreaking words, the separation was complete. The world was now split forever into two realms, the land of the living and the land of the dead. Izanagi, having escaped the horrors of Yomi, felt a profound need to purify himself from the corruption of the underworld. He stripped off his clothes and his jewels, which, in a final act of divine magic, became gods themselves. He then entered a river, where he performed a ritual cleansing. It was a symbolic act, washing away the filth and the terror of his journey into the underworld. It's a powerful image, a god trying to wash away his trauma, to return to a state of purity after witnessing such horror. And as he washed, a miraculous thing happened. From his left eye, the goddess Amaterasu, the sun goddess, was born. She was a being of pure light and warmth, the most revered deity in all of Japan. From his right eye, the god Tsukiyomi, the moon god, was born. He was the gentle deity of the night, serene and mysterious. And from his nose, Susanoo, the storm god, was born. He was a wild and unpredictable god, full of chaos and energy. These three, the sun, the moon, and the storm, would become the central figures in the Japanese pantheon, the most powerful of all the gods. After bringing these magnificent deities into existence, Izanagi, exhausted and heartbroken, decided to retreat from the world. He had seen the beginning of life and the horror of death, and he was ready for a well-deserved rest. He ascended to the heavens, leaving the new world in the hands of his children, the divine siblings who would shape the destiny of Japan. And so, the story of creation and the tragic birth of death was complete. The story of Izanagi and Izanami is more than just a myth about how the world began. It's a deeply human tale about love, betrayal, grief, and the harsh realities of life and death. It shows us that even gods are not immune to sorrow and loss, and that our choices, both good and bad, have lasting consequences. It reminds us that for life to exist, death must also exist. It's a balance, a constant dance between creation and destruction. The story also explains so many things about Japanese culture, from the belief in a cyclical world of nature to the veneration of divine ancestors. It's a reflection of the deep-seated respect for both life and the spirits of those who have passed on. For me, the most haunting part of this story is the moment Izanagi broke his promise. That single act of impatience, of fear, changed everything. If he had just waited, would she have been able to return? Would the world have been spared the curse of 1,000 deaths a day? It's a question that hangs in the air, a what if that echoes through the ages. It's a reminder that sometimes, the hardest and most important thing we can do is simply to wait and trust. And in a world so fast-paced, where we are always looking for instant gratification, that lesson feels more relevant than ever. This legend, passed down through generations, is a testament to the power of storytelling. It's a way for us to understand our place in the world, to grapple with the mysteries of life and death, and to find meaning in the chaos. It's a story that lives and breathes in the heart of Japan, a foundation upon which a beautiful and complex culture was built. And that brings us to the end of our tale for tonight. I hope the story of Izanagi and Izanami has left you with something to ponder, a new perspective on the grand forces that shape our world. Thank you for joining me and for spending this time with Night Story. If this story resonated with you, please consider hitting that like button, subscribing for more tales from the shadows, and leaving a comment to let me know what you thought. We have so many more stories to tell, so many more worlds to explore, and I can't wait to share them with you. Until next time, stay curious, and always remember to listen closely to the whispers of the past.